Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. We want to help you become a church communications expert. We understand it's a challenging and ever-changing role because we worked in the church too, which is why we built a community of over 30,000 church leaders that are ready to support and cheer you on. Your hosts for the show are Katie Allred, Kenny Jahng, with special guest host from the church communications team. They're here to help you and equip you to better reach your community. We'll talk shop with practitioners, professionals, and communications experts about what's working, what's not, and what's next.
Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. I'm Katie Allred, and today I'm really excited to have Jeremy Cummings joining us. And Jeremy actually comes from Knoxville, Tennessee, where he has been a communications director at a church for a really long time. And I'm excited for you to get to know him and learn from him. Jeremy, thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Hey, thank you, Katie. Glad to be here.
Yeah, okay. So I know that we literally just talked about it before we started recording, but can you maybe tell the people how we got to today?
Oh, absolutely. So I have been a creative communications director for a number of years, almost 12 years now, and been in the church world and helping with that for many years prior to that. And so I have been a part of the church communications page on Facebook and just involved in the group and in various groups like it for several years now, since really the start of the page. And I've been chatting with multiple people at different churches for a number of years, involved in a lot of meetups and things like that. And so I had saw some recent posts come across recently about how the church is getting, I guess you would say, getting the gospel and getting Jesus to people, getting that question and answers to that question out to people. And we had just recently done something at the church I was just at, and I was just at Fairview Knox Church for 6 years on full-time staff, and just recently stepped down from my role there to launch my own company, Cummings Creative. And it's going to be a creative and communications company also, but we're able to reach more churches and small businesses and nonprofits and stuff. But one of the things we had just done was we had launched something called an Equip Center. And I think that's kind of where me and you connected. It was something that was really something y'all were talking about at the time. And so I think, yeah.
Yeah, why don't you tell me a little bit more about the Equip Center? Like, what is that? What does that mean?
Okay, so one of the things that our church is a Baptist church. We have been around for 120, 130, however many years, a long time. So, we have been using, we're kind of that mesh of, kind of the modern church, contemporary church, and still some old traditional church stuff. So we have been using tracks for years and years, even since before I got there. And I'd seen we've used those a lot, and would go and hand those out, and there wasn't a lot of good response from them. It was more your typical okay, thanks, and then you would pretty much see the person go throw the thing away. So so I started rethinking tracks in my head about a year ago or so, and posed the question in our creative meeting with our senior pastor and our group about, what would this look like if we kind of reimagined the track thing. What are the questions? What are the things people actually want to know? They don't need all, a whole sermon on a piece of paper, maybe, but maybe they want to know the question of why bad things are happening. And so we went and figured out, some of these questions, why Jesus, why the Bible, that type of thing, and put some answers to those. We did a video for each question, and then created a QR code and put the QR code on the back of a little hexagon looking card that we printed up, and had the question on the front, and that was it. And so we have those. People are handing those out everywhere.
So all the answers were on your website?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
So brings you back to kind of the digital Equip Center, where they can get more information, resources, links to other pastors on the subject,
Mhm.
or different things like that. Answers in Genesis, for example, about
Yeah.
why creation, or whatever. So just typical questions. We're around the University of Tennessee campus here in Knoxville, and so that's been definitely a place we've been kind of looking to
Right.
go and kind of have some of these discussions. So
Yeah, no, that's really great. That's cool to hear. I really do think it's very important for churches to answer these basic questions on their website, because people are Googling these questions and Google would prefer to send them to a local source for the answer, but most of the time there just is not a local source. So it's
bingo.
cool to hear that
Yeah,
you're doing the exact right thing there. So thank you for that. Maybe we can
absolutely.
convince other churches to do it too.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so my first question is, what does church communication mean to you? Like, where do you or what does it mean to the church right now, like communication in general?
Um, for the Big C church, I think that communication means two things. One, for just local and for your church family, if you will, it's really getting information into their hands. What's happening? What are we doing? What comes up next? Who got saved? Who's getting baptized next? Kind of local internal communication. And then, the thing that I'm most passionate about is communication from the church to the world.
Yeah.
And kind of, and that's kind of where, for example, the Equip Center kind of comes in, but just
Mhm.
getting your message, getting your sermons,
Mhm.
getting the stuff that you're doing in your church, what your church is all about, and being the
Right.
church, getting that out, whether
Yeah.
that's social and live stream platforms, whether that's you know physically in like paper
Mhm.
form. It's people going out and being the church. So
Yeah.
one of the things I did as a communications director is we tried to empower people and give them the tools and the information and the knowledge to go and do communications for the church. It's not always one person. It's not always through Facebook. It's not always through YouTube. It's
Right.
the church needs to go do and communicate the gospel to people. So
Yep. Well, and here's the thing, like, yes, the church needs to go and communicate the gospel. I think that we lose sense of that. I think a lot of times communications becomes a really inward focus.
yeah,
We need to communicate all the millions of things our church is doing inwardly to the people who are inside of, like, the church. But really, like, and I think this is something you're passionate about as well, is communication is really about everything that's going on outside and how your church is working with and serving the local community, how you're communicating the love that you have for your community from within, right? And how you can bring
exactly.
people who are in the community into the church, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things, we have really gotten real passionate recently. We've always been passionate about missions, but we've really been a lot more passionate in the last probably 5 years or so about local missions. And, we can take money and kind of pour it all over the world and give to, NAM and give to all these groups. And we do that. But we also saw a major need just in Knoxville, in our community, in the Quarryton area, which is the little town outside of Knoxville we're from. And so, we've set up a blessings box. We do local missions. We have a missions day. We go and find widows and find people around the community that are just not fortunate right now and have hard times, and fix their deck or whatever it may be. We go and go under the bridge to the homeless and feed them, and that's been something that we had done for several years. We have a motel ministry that we go to every other Sunday night. We take food. We serve almost. I think the last Sunday we served 700 and something meals on a Sunday night. So that, to me, letting people know what we're doing in that regard is way more important to me than letting them know, we have this awesome VBS coming up. I mean, that is good to let people know, obviously,
Yeah.
but I want to let people know what the church is actually doing, how we're being the church.
Yeah, to me, the church is really knowing you have someone you can call when things go wrong. you
Yeah,
know, I think we forget about that a lot. That church is a family, and it's like the family you can reach when things happen. Like I can remember, so funny, after a hurricane, I called my church because I had a tree fall. I have a chainsaw. I am not capable of cutting up a tree. That is not in Katie's skill set. So I asked my church, I was like, is there a guy or someone? I mean, because I know they do like some storm relief. Like, is there some guy who can just come over here? Like, I think the two of us can really knock this out. It's not a huge tree. Anyways, they told me no. That's the funny part. Okay. I am like a church member, an active church member, and they were like, you need to go sign up for disaster relief or something at this other church. And I was like, I need to go sign up for disaster relief. First off, I don't need disaster relief. I need one person to help me cut down this tree. And I was like, oh man, this is a good example of like where things go awry. And I'm like, oh, if it's this hard for me, sorry, there's a storm warning. But if things go so wrong for me, then storm warning. So many storm warnings.
Oh yeah, we have them too right now. It's all kinds of fun.
I know, it's so much fun.
It's like 108 here today. So with the heat index, it's awesome.
Oh gosh, no, thank you. Yeah, that's where. Well, I'm normally in Nashville. I was telling you earlier. I'll tell the people I'm in Rochester, New York right now, visiting my aunt and uncle. But in Nolensville, where I live, there's a bunch of storms coming through. So it's just it's been going off all morning long. But I'm like, I'm not even there. Why are you telling me? So anyway, but back to this. Okay, where did I stop? Sorry.
With the church said no.
Yes, the church said no to me. Yes. What's funny though is that growing up, that was totally the normal thing to do. Like for me, like the church that I grew up in, like if something happened, like we grew up on like 20 plus acres, right in the middle of nowhere, like on some farmland. But our church was only 100 people. But like if something happened at our house and like we needed some help, like we would just call somebody at the church, like, and most of the time we would know a specific somebody and say, hey, like Brent, do you mind like just coming and cutting the grass today? Like, and they'd be like, oh, of course not. And, like there they are cutting the grass. I'm like, yeah, that's the church to me. Like, not like let's sign up for a program and like you have to go through this funnel or something in order to do it. Like it is, I can call somebody and know that relationally they'll be right there for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the church shouldn't really have the red tape thing. So, and I think that's what you're kind of explaining. Yeah, I'm blessed at mine. We use I guess it's a CHRM or whatever you call it, called Realm, and it's kind of our internal Facebook, and so people all the time post, hey, my car won't start. I'm on the side of whatever road. Can somebody come help? And there's like 4 responses within 2 minutes, kind of thing. And so we do a pretty good job of that. But yeah, the church as a whole, and I see it more with larger churches, kind of the mega churches, even more so than the smaller churches, that there's just, it's almost you get to a point where you're so big and there becomes this disconnect with the local community and internal church sometimes. And so we do as just church in general, we've got to do better at taking care of our family first, to some degree. It's great to serve others, but if your family's sitting there, has a tree down, can't get anything done with it, you're going, over to Africa to cut trees down. Something seems a little odd with that,
right?
It seems a little odd, So
right. So thank you for agreeing with me. I was like, am I like, is this odd or like what?
Oh, no.
It's fine. It's fine. I hired somebody, but it was funny too though, because what was really funny is that my local, like my home church, actually came down to do storm relief, and they were like, "Oh, we can just stop by your house and help you too with the tree." I'm like, guys, you shouldn't have to help me with the tree. You're coming here for 3 hours away.
Yeah, wow.
Go help somebody that actually needs help. Like I'll just hire somebody. It's fine. Like whatever. Anyways, it was just really funny. But okay, so another question. I'm turning the page here. All right. So what is your favorite channel to communicate with your congregation? Why? Like, could it be email or texting? I mean, are you doing a phone tree, social media? What's your
Yeah, for us, and like I said, I'm not really there anymore full time, so I got to kind of back up a month or two ago when I was doing that. But typically, we have multiple funnels for multiple things. So I had it set up where we use our website, our app, Facebook, Twitter, and Realm, sort of, and Instagram for that matter, all differently. So we have different audiences on different platforms. And if we want to reach the students or college age kids, young adults, we throw things on Instagram. If we are trying to reach the baby boomers, we kind of hit our website and Facebook. And so,
yeah.
It was kind of a five-pronged approach, really, in terms of how and what we use. Personally, I kind of was like, I got on Facebook in '04, like when it first was available at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. It had just came out of the Ivy League, and like we were one of the first universities to get it, and it was like, oh, this is the coolest thing. So I've grown up with Facebook. So for me, I just know Facebook so well that it's best and easiest for me. However, I also didn't like using our Facebook as just this event advertising platform. I prefer to answer questions and pose questions. Hey, what's your favorite ice cream? What's your favorite song of the last 10 years? I mean, that kind of thing. So it's just we use different platforms differently, but Facebook was definitely my favorite to use because it's just the one I knew the best.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, what is one thing you wish you knew starting out in church communication if you could go back, to the beginning here?
Goodness. Well, that's probably an easy one. Church people, you have to communicate differently with church people sometimes than you would think you need to. And a lot of people on staff, especially, I know there's so many out there listening that you're on a church staff. Church to you was very different before you got in that first staff meeting and then after you're in that first staff meeting. When you kind of go behind the scenes and you see the dirty and
it's
stuff,
a different world.
It's a totally different thing. So I wish I would have known that going in, because it was a little bit of a shock, and you would just be like, hey, this is coming up. And then you'd get 5 texts. Well, what about my event? Well, my event's just as important. Well, I have this coming up too, and it's important. And so, I learned how to balance that and how to juggle that. You've got to understand that for you, every event for every ministry is important. For them, they may have 2 events the entire year for their little department, their ministry within the church. And so their one event is the monumental thing for them in their world. But to you, it's one of 300. It's kind of like, hey, I'm going to go at this. And it may
I
be
hear a collective groan from the people.
I know,
are
right?
like, oh my God, you're so right. But like, how do you navigate that, right? Like when you've got everybody that's vying for your attention, and like, how do you decide, like, okay, you're getting these things, but you're not getting these things, even though this ministry gets these things?
Yeah, what we ended up doing, and I just basically kind of created a process for church-wide events, outward focused events, internal events, ministry-specific events, etc. So, the man's Saturday morning breakfast they have every week is going to get handled very differently than our major Christmas experience that we, push to the whole community and to the whole world for that matter. So I got the leadership, our lead pastor, the other pastors, I got them involved and on board with that. And so I let them push that, not me, so that I wasn't the bad guy at that point. They're more their boss than I am, if you will, when it comes to just staff roles, if you will. So I let them handle that part of things, and then I just kind of executed. So nice about it. And when we could help, hey, if it was it was not a super busy time, which is rare, but if it was not a super busy time, if they wanted an extra thing done, or they wanted to do a video or something and put it out on their like ministry group or what, hey, we'll help you out. But typically we just had to kind of make sure they understood, hey, this ministry is great and we love it, but the 7 ladies you have and y'all come sew every week, like we don't got to let the whole church and the whole entire world know about that. Like we got to let those 7 ladies know, and maybe your friends and the ones that aren't here that would maybe be interested in sewing. So it's but to them it comes, I mean, so many people think their thing is just the most important thing. It never fails. So I had a lady tell me that her brunch that she was having was way more important than Easter, and that it should have way more videos and exposure, and it
Wow.
should have the front page on the website.
Okay.
And so I just had to get others involved and just explain, hey, it shouldn't, but we love your event, love you, but so it's just so after a lot of years of doing that, I mean,
But
it
brunch
kind of
is
got
important,
easy.
Jeremy.
I
We
know,
love
I know, right?
brunch.
I know,
Okay.
I know. Yeah,
No, that's fair.
And it never failed. I spent way more time and effort and energy and stress on the little things, trying to make them big things when they really weren't. Whereas if I would have really put my focus on the big things and kept the little things, and not little as in belittling them, but just little compared to Easter or Christmas or VBS. But if I wouldn't have stressed so much, and I would have probably kept myself from burning out the few times I kind of approached that. So that's a big thing. You got to pace yourself. You got to handle yourself well in this world, and creative and communications is not for the faint of heart. So
no, definitely not. Actually, have you ever read the book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff?
yes.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I feel like the mentality that you're talking about is like, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff basically. And yeah, no, my dad was a big fan of the don't sweat the small stuff mentality. So no, that's cool. Okay, so where do you think church communication is going, like today?
Yes. So I think I feel very strong. I follow Carey Newhoff pretty strongly on some of the things he's talking about and has been talking about for a while, and a few others as well. And I really think we are going backwards about 30 to 40 years right now, in my opinion. That's just where I think we're headed. I think we've started to see sort of the slowdown, if you will, maybe the decline of the megachurch. I think COVID really, started making that happen, with everybody starting to live stream. So many people started learning they could stay home and, go to, maybe they'll, if they're in town, they'll go to church that week, but otherwise they're going to go to church on the internet. And, for me, it's, I see both sides of it. You lose the being there with people and sitting in a room and having enough physical Bible opened and like chatting and talking, that you just can't really reproduce that online. So, there's been some great attempts for sure. Elevation does phenomenal at it, and others, but so I really feel like churches are kind of getting smaller, but smaller in a sense that they're getting stronger too. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot more people coming to like a Wednesday night Bible study. I think you're going to see churches, do Sunday nights again, do Wednesday nights again, because people after a couple of years are longing to be together now. And so I think you got that side of it. As far as communications goes, though, you're going to be basically have your church that's there physically, and then you're going to have your online church. That's going to kind of be there for so many people, and so you've got to find a way to marry the two. And I think online church is not going away; it's just going to grow. And I think that can be embraced or it can be rejected. I see a lot of churches rejecting it right now. They're like, we use that for COVID, but everybody come back now. We're not giving you this no more. You got to be here. And I just think that's such the wrong approach, because I'm all for
it's an and situation, right? Like you need both.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm all for hey, my buddy that went to church with me growing up and then got hooked on drugs here in Knoxville and hadn't is scared to death to go back to church, but he would jump on an online thing as his first kind of door of entry to kind of check it out. If you tell me, hey, we're just going to do away with that and he needs to come there, that kind of goes back to your tree cut thing. I mean, that's just not being the church, in my opinion. So yeah. I see the value. I value being at the building and that thing.
Jeremy came to preach.
I think we got to do both things. I think we've got to still communicate, still do church for the people that aren't physically there. We have around 2,000 or so a week that will kind of watch our experience every Sunday, and whether it's live or it's just throughout the week after that. But that's more than we have in our actual physical building. And so if we just kind of did away with them, well, that's a lot of people that are currently view us as their church that would kind of be lost, not have a place at that point. And so yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. It's probably a whole nother podcast.
But that's okay. We can always get into it. I agree. There's definitely something about being in person that we cannot replicate online. But then, although the metaverse ? No.
Yeah.
But then there's also something about being online that you can't replicate in person. So it's a situation where I feel like it's necessary to keep both as we drive forward, whatever this looks like.
Yeah. I mean, my thing that I've been really doing is I've been being very specific when I was on staff full time, and even now as I help churches that really don't have a person on staff to even think in these ways. Is you've got to start crafting your communication, not so much, hey, Peggy's having her cake fest Tuesday at 6:00 in the fellowship hall, everybody come. Like, yeah,
that sounds
good,
like a great event. I would sign up for Peggy's Cake Fest.
Yeah, Peggy's Cake Fest would be great. In fact, I may just need to
honestly, why is that that's the number one event? Like, forget Vacation Bible School. Peggy's Cake Fest.
Peggy's Cake. That would be the
okay. Sorry. Is it a cakewalk too? But there's so many cakes that you.
That would be great. Old school cakewalk. Yes. That would be
man.
Awesome.
Okay.
My daughter's middle school did a cakewalk recently, and I was blown away. I'm like, oh my goodness, I've not seen this in 25 years.
You were like, I'm signing up for this cakewalk right now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And
give
one,
me the
too.
cake.
It was great.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about. Velvet. People love the cake. So, that's maybe this podcast is actually about how your church should host the cakewalk.
Yeah. Have a cakewalk, and you're good.
A community cakewalk. And everybody had, you could be in the Genesis Book of World Records, the largest cakewalk.
I can assure you, you're going to reach some people that way.
Is there even a goal for that yet? I don't think so.
100%.
But you could establish the world record for the largest cakewalk. So I just want everyone to consider that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, pray about it. Anyways, that's
we're gonna be. Yeah, another few months, we'll see the pictures and videos all flooding the page of everybody's cakewalk they did at church in August.
I hope that they do. Honestly, this is a great evangelism tactic. Bring people to the Lord through cake walks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But so I think you've got to make it hybrid. Like, you've got to talk to. You can't just shun. It's the same thing. If you go back a few years ago, where it was kind of the generational thing. It was the young people and it was the old people. Like, are we going to talk to the old people or are we going to talk to the young people? Are we going to do music for the young people or the old people?
Yep.
Like, why
How
can't
to tell you've been in a Baptist
both?
church?
Yeah, of course. Why can't we do both? And so, I think I think we're getting there with communication. It's going to be both. We're going to have to get the churches that are going to kind of thrive and keep growing are going to learn how to communicate to people that never step a foot in their church. And then the people that, their 7 generations have all, gone to that church and died there, kind of thing. So it's like you're going to have to be able to talk to both people in a very relevant, real, close way. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Okay, on a less serious note, I have been asking you people about, the website or the bulletin. I've always gotten the website now, so I feel like I know what people are going to say. So I'm not even going to ask that question. Okay, so my new question, though, is if you had to only have one font and it was between Papyrus or Comic Sans for everything, which one would you choose and why?
So because Papyrus has holes within the font somewhat, it's kind of a little broken font. It makes it harder for print shops to print that on some things. So there would be less opportunity for it to get printed. So I'd probably go with Papyrus just for that reason. There would be less of it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought you were going to go with Comic Sans because at least it would be readable. But you're like, no.
Whatever out of those two, whatever we could do the least of. Absolutely. Now, see, I thought we were going to get into, Gotham or Proxima Nova, but no, we had to go.
No, these are your two options.
I erased I found a way to erase those fonts from my font book, so they're not even available.
And everyone should do that for every church computer across the nation.
Yeah,
like
please,
and also specifically church, like what is it, like shops in Gatlinburg should just get rid of all Papyrus font. That's literally all they have on everything.
It's everything.
Love in Papyrus.
Oh, it's bad. Yeah, Gatlinburg, they're I don't know what century they're living in, but it's bad. But yeah, you got to go into like your church secretary's computers, your pastor's computers, and like remove those fonts because we all know you guys aren't going to
download some other ones too while you're there.
But,
like put some nice
yeah. In fact, erase the whole font book and just add like 10 back. We need CMG. Yeah, CMG Sans would be good just to have on there. And go get Gotham, get Brandon Grotesque, and maybe Helvetica, and you may be good at that point. Then they only have a few good options. So yeah,
and that's it. Those are the only options. No, I like that. I think that's a great idea. Okay, so my last question is, and it's a very serious one, is if you were on a deserted island and you only had one CCM album to listen to, which one would it be and why?
Oh man. Let's see here. Probably go with Jars of Clay because I'll be hoping a flood happens.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I was just talking about Jars of Clay on another podcast.
Listening to Old Flood over and over again. That was like my first CD I loved when I was younger.
Oh,
that was
man.
Like Christian music.
It was,
and Jars of Clay. Oh yeah, that was the stuff.
Man, I remember the first time I heard, and I talked about this on another one, so sorry everyone for hearing it twice if you've heard it, but I remember I first heard of Jars of Clay because of A Walk to Remember.
Oh,
they were on that soundtrack, and I was obsessed with that soundtrack. It was like them and Switchfoot, and I was just like all about that life, so became like a huge fan because of that. That's so funny. Okay, so Jars of Clay, like the original album.
Oh, original, yeah. That has Flood on it, and you just play Flood over and over again.
Over and over and over again for the rest of time. But you're on an island. What if the island floods?
There's what you're at. You're trying to get to, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Jeremy, if people wanted to connect with you online, how would they do that, and where could they get a hold of
you? So you can get with me on Facebook, Instagram, any of that at Jeremy Cummings or at Cummings-Creative. I'm on Facebook, Cummings-Creative. A lot of the handles are different, side to side, but for the most part, if you search Cummings Creative on Facebook, you find me, you'll see my little logo, and you can find that on the rest of them as you search. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Katie. It's been fun.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Church Communications Podcast. If you want to learn more, join over 30,000 church leaders in our Facebook group at churchcommunications.com/group. If you like today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It's the most impactful way you can help us reach more church leaders and equip them to better communicate for the church. Finally, don't forget to check out our website at churchcommunications.com. Thanks for listening.